It's 2019 and let's start this year with a bang! Stand up! Vanguard! Hello card fighters, welcome to a new year on the channel and a new year for Vanguard in general. And we kicked this year off with a bang with the new release of the Shadow Panel in VR that Bushrod announced, depending on where you were in the world, around the New Year's Eve. But that's not all, we've got a lot to go over, as seen as I pre-recorded most of the videos between Christmas and today. So the new Shiryuki cards were revealed, we got some Pale Moon reveals, we got another Shadow Panel reveal that we're also going to talk about today. So in the coming days we're going to recuperate and talk about everything that happened in the last week, but also we're going to look back at the year of Vanguard and see what Bushrod did basically in 2018 and see how things went. Also, I want to thank everybody for congratulating me for my birthday and all the good, nice messages of you guys on Facebook as well as on the channel itself. And I'm gonna continue this year. We're gonna go strong. We're gonna do a lot of things. I also, if you might have noticed, my voice is a little bit more clear. I've got a new microphone as a present from my good friends, so you guys will hear a lot more crisp voice than the normal echo you will hear when I'm using the camera audio. So if it's still on the screen, I'm sorry for that. So the quality on the channel is also going to go up from this point onward, and I'm very excited about all the things we're gonna do. And yeah, without further ado, let's jump right into the video because we have a lot of interesting things to talk about this card. Alright, so most of you guys know that Gus Blaster Dragon got introduced as basically today or yesterday, depending on where you were. But there was another card that I haven't talked about that was revealed for Shadow Paladin. So I'm gonna go into that one first, and then we're gonna come back to Gus Blaster Dragon as we're going to dissect this card and see how good it is, or if the general opinion of the community is if it's fair or isn't fair. But without further ado, let's first talk about this new grade 2, the triple R that we got, and that is Dark Bond Trumpeter. And this is an interesting card, as seen as it's another 9k grade 2. And the last one that we got in the previous set, that was Blaster Rapier, it was a little bit iffy. It depends on how you want to play. You can use it or not. Most people don't tend to use it. But if we're gonna compare the two, then probably this card is a bit better than that one. But let's see what it is if we're gonna dissect the skill. Because this card has two skills. Its first one is Auto on Vanguard and Rearguard Circle. When placed, cost Counterblast 1. Search your deck up to one power 5k card. Call it to the Rearguard Circle as rest, and shuffle your deck. So what this card does, it calls another card, a 5k card from your deck. And currently in standard we only have two cards. We have the promo grid 1, and we have the main card, and that is Skull Witch in the main. And that's basically what this card does. It allows us to get our Skull Witch in the main more consistently to the field. The only downside is that you need to call the rest, so you cannot use the main skill immediately afterwards. Well, it depends. If you want to run the more turbo version, then yes, it's probably not that great, as seen as you need to wait one turn. But in a general sense, it's a pretty good skill, as seen as in most games where you cannot get your main on time, as early as grade 1 or 2, then you might fall behind, as seen as it's your only way to get some easy plussing and to fuel your Phantom Blaster Dragon. This card allows to have a more consistent way of getting that card to your hand, or basically to the field, and therefore it's a pretty good card as it allows you to have more consistent access to your domains. It's also a little bit of a little beat stick, as seen as her second skill is Auto on Vanguard and Rearguard Circle. When your power 5k rearguard is placed, this unit gets power plus 3k until the end of turn. Note that this doesn't say once per turn, so if you have a main on the field and you call one from hand and you use this card, you can place two on the field and she gains plus 6k. You can also use in the main rested and then call another one. So depending on how you play the dice, this one can stack, but it's limited as it only works with the 5k, but it helps becoming a 12k beater or 22 depending if there's a force marker beneath it. But the main reason this card is okay in my mind is the fact that it's a utility card that allows you to get your domains faster. It's not a power creep card, it's not an outright better card in most games. It allows us to have some other utility options, and that's the whole reason. The thing that I'm preaching for is instead power creeping cards. Just give clans more options, more ways to build a deck, and this card is perfect. You can go pretty much the normal route and go with Kefbat, just have a generic beat stick. Or you can go for a more consistent route and use this card to get your domains as quickly, as fast as possible. And in my opinion, this is a little bit better than Blaster Rapier, as seen as they're both 9k, but this card gives a little bit more value in the general sense of how your game plan of how the Shadow Paladin deck works currently. Alright, now we're getting to the real meat of this video, and that is Gus Blaster Dragon. Alright, we've got the second VR of this set that was revealed with skill, as seen as we're already seen in the anime, the one for Dark Regulars, but we haven't have any confirmation about the skill as of yet. But Gus Blaster Dragon has also 2 skills, and his first skill is Auto on Vanguard Circle. When it attacks, cost, counter blast 1, and retire 2 of your rearguards. Draw a card, your opponent chooses one of his or her rearguards, retires it, and this unit gets power plus 10k until the end of turn. Alright, before I'm going to talk about this card, let's dive into his second skill, and then we're going to dissect everything. His second skill is Auto on Vanguard Circle. When your rearguard is retired, if a grade 3 card with Blaster in its card name is in your soul, this unit gets critical plus 1 until the end of turn. Alright, the only 2 units that can work for the grade 3 in the soul, that is either Gus Blaster Dragon himself, if you're right on top of him, or the Phantom Blaster Dragon, the previous VR that we got in the AL4 set. Alright, so what this card basically do is, on attack, shoot you 2 of your own rearguards, and you can then draw 1 card, and you retire 1 of your opponent's cards. It gets 10k, and because of its second skill, if you have 1 in the soul, it gains plus 2 crit as soon as you just retire 2 of your own rearguard. So it's a 23k attacker that retires something, that draws something, and it has 3 crit. It's pretty okay, and it is a little bit more sustainable than Phantom Blast Dragon, as soon as it only retires 2 and you draw 1. So you're actually only minusing 1, but as soon as your opponent is also minusing 1, you're playing even. And Phantom Blast Dragon also played even in the fact that you retire 3 and your opponent retires 3, but as soon as you're not drawing anything back, you cannot sustain this much longer. And as soon as retiring 3 is a lot heavier than retiring 2, that you can also see why this card might be a little bit easier to go off. The only downside is that you only get the crit after you've basically rewritten on top of one of your VRs. What I personally found funny is that the main argument that I see a lot of people giving hate on this card is the fact that it doesn't have any guard restriction. And I'm just sitting here, does it really need guard restriction? As seen as I personally have a big issue with Waterfall in general, and I'm gonna go over that video later this week, maybe tomorrow. And it doesn't make any sense, because if you give them a guard restriction, it probably doesn't help you with you're actually wanting to trying to do. And also, they say it's not a better or stronger card. And then I'm just sitting here, so you start complaining about power creep in the game, and then when the card isn't power creeped, then you start complaining because there is no power creep in your game. So you cannot have cake and eat it too. I mean, you need to decide what you want. Don't want power creep in your game, or do you want power creep in your game? So I'm a little bit mind boggled about this fact that I don't know what most of the community really wants in their cards. But actually, in my opinion, this card is in some regard a lot better than Phantom Blaster Dragon. And I already talked about one point that why it's better is the fact that it's a lot more sustainable than Phantom Blaster Dragon. But the also other part is that it retires in your battle phase. And that's a big thing, as seen as there are a lot of cards that allows you to interact with his skills of retiring and gaining a crit. If you have the grade 1 that can retire something that give power away during the battle phase, then you can give this one even more crits. You can also just call cards on top of each other, and that will allow them to have more crits. So you can just make an OTK turn and sustain that OTK turn over multiple turns. What also is great about this card is the fact that the retire effect is in the battle phase. And your most important matchup is against Oracle Think Tank. And if they have a Promise Daughter on the field, you can basically do nothing. You cannot minusing them anymore, as soon as all your retiring skills are in the main phase. So if they have one on the field, your main phase skills are probably just useless, as soon as you're not retiring anything from them. Now, with this card, you can attack that thing first with your rearguard column. They're probably going to guard it, so they're going to waste cards. Then you attack with your other column. They're probably going to guard it again, so they're wasting your cards again. And then, when they're sitting at 3 damage with no open counterblast, you attack with your Vanguard with 3 crits. So that Oracle Think Tank player has to decide, am I gonna take it and risk it that I'm gonna die if I'm not getting a defensive heal trigger that goes off, or I'm gonna guard it and I can do nothing next turn. As I seen, I'm not really gonna plus anymore, and it's just gonna be a vanilla attack turn, unless they can get their deer off, but still it's a pretty vanilla turn, that part. That is the most value thing that you can do with this card. And you can keep sustaining this every turn, as the fact that you, by retiring only two cards and you're drawing one, you can do this basically every turn onwards. And with how easy it is to gain crits, you can do this at 3 damage. You can probably do this even at 2 damage, as you can give this thing 4 crits every turn and just say to your opponent, alright, I'm gonna attack your rear guards, and only with my Vanguard, and you need to take it, and you're probably gonna die, or you need to guard it, and you have no resources next turn, and I'm gonna do it again the turn after that. And I'm gonna do it the turn after that, and the turn after that, and the turn after that, until you cannot do anything. And that is the thing about this card. Phantom Blaster Dragon cannot do that, as seen as the retire effect is in your main phase and not in your attack phase. Also, this skill is future-proofing Shadow Paladin if we're going to get cards that we have in the G era that get benefit from getting retired. If we have a card that says, oh, it's retired, draw a card, call a card for him. Or if this thing is retired, call a grade 1 from your deck. With this card, that's immediately turn into multi-attacking, or immediately turning into extra advantage effect as soon as we get an attack off, and then we're gonna retire it. And that is the main thing, that we can attack first with a column and then retire afterwards. And the extra crit on top of it is only more bonus thing, as soon as you now can damage starve from so low in the game that your opponent can basically not play the game anymore, as soon as they either need to take the damage and hope they're gonna get a heal trigger that goes off, or they need to guard everything and suddenly they have 0 cards in hand, and then you just kill them with a 5 crit attack because you just gonna call everything on top of each other, and the thing got 7 crits instantly, because you can stack the crits indefinitely. You can get it by retiring cards, you by itself, when it attacks against 2 crits, you have the grade 1 5k that can then kill himself and gain power on something else, and your Vanguard gets another crit as soon as you retired something. You can fetch that card even out with Dark Bond Trumpeter, and just potentially any other future card will help this card. And the fact that it doesn't have a guard restrict is logical. If you give this thing a guard restrict on top of the fact that it can gain indefinite crits, is just broken beyond repair. But I'm gonna go over that in probably tomorrow's video, where I'm gonna tackle Waterfall and the whole issue with guard restricting force and all that stuff. If I'm gonna be honest, if I should rate this card, I'm probably gonna give it 5 stars in the fact that, because of the reason that I just stated, it is currently, I think, the best card in the game to damage starve your opponent in any kind of position. Oracle Think Tank can do that as well, but only if they keep rewriting into the Imperial Dollar and gain that crit and get a crit on top, so that your opponent knows this attack is gonna hit for 3 crit. So if I'm sitting on 3 damage, I cannot take that attack. So Oracle Think Tank can do that if they keep rewriting. This card, it can just do that without rewriting. It can do that on its own, as soon as it draws 1, and for turn you draw 1, so you already have the 2 cards that you retire. In my opinion, an excellent card that allows for multiple ways that you can play the deck. You can just go for the balls to the walls play with Phantom Blaster Dragon that retires everything and destroys the field, and it's good against clans that have no counter to field disruption, but against Oracle Think Tank, for example, or clans like Force clans or Protect clans that have a smaller field, then this card is a lot better, as soon as you can just force them in an awkward position where they either need to gamble on a heal trigger, or they need to keep guarding everything, and you can just snipe everything. As soon as you can attack the front row with your 2 own attacks, then attack with the Vanguard, and they need to snipe one of their own back rows. You can basically now deny your opponent any kind of gameplay, as seen as with the whole old school, the old version with retiring in the main phase. Your opponent can say, alright, I will take the front row away, so you cannot attack them anymore, so you can only attack my Vanguard, so if I get a defensive trigger, your attacks are nothing. Now you can attack first the front row, and now they also need to stack something from the back row, so you can have more options of retiring their stuff. Also, thing is, as soon as you're retiring in a battle phase, you can attack with your both front row columns, and if it's an extra clan, you can then kill your own front row units, so they cannot attack anything else when you get a defensive trigger. So you can then deny them any kind of advantage effects by just attacking your rearguards with their rearguards. So there's a lot of skill level in playing this card, in my opinion, and that is something that I want to see with all these new VRs. So in my opinion, I really like this card. I hope that the other VRs that we're going to reveal for Pale Moon and for Dark Regulars are going to be like this. Not direct increases in upgraded version of the cards, but another way of playing the deck in a different kind of playstyle. And that's exactly what I wish for. And currently, if they're going to keep going this trend for 2019, then I'm very happy. But that's my opinion. I want to know what you guys think in the comments down below. What you think of this card. I know what a lot of people are saying on Facebook, that they actually don't like it because it doesn't have a guard restrict. But if you have that opinion, if it's because you don't like this card have a guard restrict, then I highly suggest that you come back tomorrow on the channel when I go over the whole guard restrict cards in general, with Waterfall as an example. I already talked about Waterfall in a previous video at the beginning of the reboot, links on top, where I defended the card against. A lot of people were calling it OP and broken. I said in that video, well, it's not because of bloody reasons. I'm gonna come back on some points that I'm making a video that's going to be now, I'm gonna rebuttal against myself, as seen as I've played for a couple of months in the reboot. I've seen it from different perspectives. That video was from the perspective of the Kagero player and from the Oracle Think Tank player. But I didn't look at it from the other Force player and the other Axel players. And now that we have a lot more clans to see how the cards interact with it, it's a little bit changed. But the overall message is still relevant, as seen as I stated it's not an OP card. Well, Kagero is nowhere near in top meta right now, so that basically says that I had some merit and my points were somewhat valid in that video. But I'm gonna come back to that tomorrow with a lot more in-depth analysis from other kinds of perspectives what we've seen and why probably Bushiroad, at least that's from my understanding, but I hope that we're not gonna see any kind of that skill anytime soon for a card like that in a clan like that. But with that, I've talked about everything that I want to say in this video. Once again, guys, Happy New Year, and I wish you all the best in 2019, and I hope I can build on your support this year as well. We're almost hitting that 3K number on the channel, and let's see how far we can push it this year. And yeah, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one.